Hey there, welcome back to another YouTube video. We're so excited to be here today. But before we get started, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jessica, and we're the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants with Harkla. Today we're going to talk about 5 things that toddlers do that are actually normal.
So we're kind of playing on words here with this episode, and in the season that I am in, I have a 2.5-year-old and an almost 11-month-old, and there's a lot of things that I hear, that Jessica hears, that are common, but they actually aren't normal.
For toddlers.
For toddlers and for babies. So like one example would be colic, right? We were just chatting about colic and how it's pretty common, but it's really not a normal thing, or jaundice. And so those things are common, but they're not normal. Today we're going to talk about things that we hear often that are actually pretty common, but are it's pretty normal for toddler development or infant development. So that's kind of the play on words that we're going with today. They're common things, but they're pretty normal things, normal phases that toddlers go through.
Yeah. So if you're in the toddler season, you are going to understand everything we're talking about, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. This could also be beneficial for therapists if you're working in early intervention and you're working with some of your sensory kiddos. Understanding what is normal or what is more sensory based is also important so that you can tailor your treatment a little bit more effectively.
Okay. With that being said, let's jump into it. The first one is avoiding certain food textures. It is a really common thing. It's very normal for kids to become more picky, more selective eaters around the age of 18 months. So around that age, they're learning about independence. They're learning how to voice their wants and their needs and their desires and their dislikes. And food is something that they can always control.
Yep. Yeah, at that age, they really feel like they start to want that control over their body and over their environment. So being able to control the food that they do or do not eat is a really great way for them to assert that independence. But also, once you start introducing solids in infancy, oftentimes we'll see infants who have an adverse reaction to a new food, like pureed apples, applesauce. They
pureed apples. I love it.
Yes, pureed apples. They'll spit it out or they'll make a face. And really, it's not that they don't like that food. It's that it's new, it's different. They haven't experienced it yet. And then, in that toddler picky eating phase, it's not necessarily that they don't like the food texture. It's that they want to have control. So they want to say yes or no.
Here are some strategies that I am currently using with my toddler right now that are helping, and these are strategies that we've used in OT and feeding therapy for our entire existence of practice. The first one is to have consistent mealtime, have consistency at the table. We always opt for at least one meal together at the table, so that way they kind of learn that expectation of everyone coming to the table and sitting down and being required to sit down and eat together.
Another tip is to make sure your child is touching and playing with their food. If your child is able to tolerate the food on their hands, they're more likely to be able to tolerate it in their mouth and to eat it, and the more comfortable they become with those different textures by just playing with it with their hands.
Going along with that, we encourage experimenting with the different food textures and flavors by kissing, biting, licking, touching, poking the food. So even if they're not required to eat it, they are required to at least see what it smells like and see what it tastes like and feels like, and that way they have that control. Do you want to lick it or do you want to bite it today? And they can say, oh, I think I'm going to bite it. Okay, great. Are you going to chew it or are you going to spit it out? And they have that control.
Another one is to not give them a lot of attention at the meal table if they are refusing foods or having those adverse reactions. So I always like to think about, when I'm sitting down and eating a meal, if somebody was staring at me the whole time, it'd make me really uncomfortable. So make sure that the meal table is inviting and fun, but that you're not just staring at your child while they're eating, and you're not making it a huge deal if they do refuse a food.
Yep. Just have a conversation and say, how was your day today? And just talk amongst yourselves like you normally would. The next one is to bring the child in the kitchen with you. Have them help prepare meals. Have them grocery shop with you. Have them cut the food or season the food or put the food into the pot before you boil the water. And then when you're picking out the food at the grocery store, have the child engaged with you and choosing what food they want to put in the cart rather than having them sit on a device or on a phone or a tablet, because really eating starts by gathering the food. If you aren't growing your own food, then have them pick out the food at the grocery store.
We also encourage you to use a visual schedule and a visual timer for helping with that mealtime routine. That can be really helpful for the child to know when mealtime is and how long it lasts. Also, if you're going through this picky eating phase with your child, we do have another YouTube video specifically for picky eating. We also have a couple of podcast episodes on mealtime and picky eating. We'll link all of those in the description below. And I think it's just important to remember that picky eating is a normal, common, typical phase that all children go through. They might have adverse reactions the first couple of times they're introduced to a new food texture, and it's not always just a sensory challenge. It's something that all children go through.
The next thing that is common and also pretty normal is for kids to become a little hesitant on playground equipment. They're learning about their bodies, they're learning about gravity, they're learning about postural stability. So something that maybe they didn't have a fear to initially, they are recognizing that it's a long ways down that slide and I don't know if my feet are going to hit the ground or not, or if I'm going to fall over. So definitely a common thing to see with kiddos.
Well, I just think about, these kids are so small and they're looking up at this giant playground equipment and it looks huge and scary and intimidating. And, just being that small and the playground's so big, that can be nerve-wracking for sure. So just knowing that when you're taking your toddler to the playground and they're going down the slide or they're on the swing or they're climbing and jumping, if they are hesitant, that's okay. Make sure that you're their safe space so they can come to you if they need you. You're also on the playground equipment. You're going down the slide with them. You're swinging with them. You're going across the unstable balance bridge things on the playground equipment. You're doing it with them so that they can see that they're going to be okay when they do it.
Don't force them, co-regulate with them, give them time to play on the ground and get comfortable with it. And if you do go down the slide or go down the equipment with them, just make sure that you are holding their legs on your lap with you, and that way they aren't going to have a body part that gets stuck to the slide, and we don't want any broken bones. So just make sure that you are being extra careful when you are going down the slide with your kiddo.
And again, consistent exposure is key here for your child to get more comfortable and sure about the different playground equipment pieces. The more you do it, the easier it'll get. The next thing that we see with toddlers is that they trip a lot, they run into things and bump into obstacles. They're constantly falling down and getting bruises all over. And oftentimes we'll have parents ask us, is that normal? Should I be concerned? And I think the answer is no. That's something that's pretty common for our toddlers. It's how they learn about their body and how they learn about their environment. And we have to keep in mind that toddlers have only been walking for a pretty short amount of time, so they're still not fully coordinated yet.
So with that, you can practice moving through obstacle courses, improve their body awareness by providing proprioceptive input. It increases awareness by providing that compression or stretching to their joints, muscles, and tendons. Using vibration is really helpful to increase awareness. Just know that any tactile stimulation you provide, it's going to help them identify, oh, this is my arm, this is where it is, or oh, this is my back. I can't see it, but I need to know that it's there.
You can also play different games and sing different songs that help with that body awareness and identifying different body parts. The first one that comes to mind is head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And you can expand that to include stomach and hair and any other body part that you want to include into that song.
I think of the Hokey Pokey. You could do Simon Says. Simon Says, wiggle your elbow. Be creative with this one. Or even like five little jumpies. 5 little monkeys jumping on a bed. One fell off and bonked his head, or maybe one fell off and bonked his knee, and you could recognize where those body parts are.
Yeah. I was also thinking with the obstacles and moving around different obstacles, make sure you're narrating the different positions the child is moving in. So are they going over an obstacle or under an obstacle? Are they going through a tunnel or are they going around the tunnel? And talk about it in that way with your child so they better understand that spatial awareness as well.
One other game that I was thinking of was the chalk bodies outside, having the child lay down or just maybe imitate different positions. Maybe they make their body into their name, so they do an R, and then you trace around their body as they're making an R, and then an A, and so forth until you spell their name, and that way they get up and they can see if they position their bodies the right way. But that's a great way to work on that body awareness. The next thing that we see that's actually pretty common, pretty normal, is that kids can't sit still for very long. And so kind of our rule of thumb is that a child should be able to sit down and focus on a task that they're interested in for the amount of minutes that matches their age. So if they're 2 years old, they should be able to sit down for that selective attention for about 2 minutes. That's it. That's not very long at all.
Nope.
So keep that in mind. Kiddos are made to move, they're made to run and jump and spin and learn through their body. And us adults are always trying to sit them down and get them to be still, but that's not how kids learn.
The last one that we're talking about here today is rocking or head banging to go to sleep. We'll oftentimes get messages from parents saying that their toddler is rocking in their crib before they go to sleep, or they're head banging on the side of their crib before they go to sleep. And oftentimes this is actually something that's fairly common and normal for toddlers to do.
They're learning how to regulate, they're learning what they need in order to fall asleep. Sometimes that's movement, sometimes that's proprioceptive input. So what we can do to help that is to give them more of that before they go to bed. So in their bedtime routine, or before you start their bedtime routine, go outside, go for a bike ride, go for a scooter ride, go for a walk, play in the sand, go to the park, maybe do some animal walks when you get home, crawl on the floor. Let them get that input that they're seeking, and that way they might not need it as much in their bed as they're going to sleep.
We do have a lot of resources to teach you how to create a sensory diet, which is exactly what Rachel just explained, those sensory activities that help meet your child's sensory needs. And we'll link all of our information in the description below. But creating that bedtime sensory diet routine that gives them what they need is is a game changer.
It is.
It's a game changer. Now, it is important to note that if your child is banging their head so hard that it's leaving a mark or a bruise, or it's causing them to feel disoriented, that's definitely something different and not quite what we're talking about. That gentle banging is more of them providing themselves with that calming proprioceptive input. So you want to find, if you're uncomfortable with it, you want to find some different ways for them to get that input in a different way.
Yes, always, if you are concerned with your child's functioning, make sure that you reach out to your pediatrician, ask and advocate for a referral to in-person occupational therapy services. That's always going to be your best bet to intervene early on and get therapy to help out. There's nothing wrong with a little extra help for any of these kiddos. And just know that we have resources here to help you virtually if you aren't able to get into an occupational therapist. Check out our additional YouTube videos, listen to our podcast, All Things Sensory by Harkla. You can find it on all major podcast platforms.
We also share a lot of free information on our Instagram. We are at Harkla_family, as well as at All Things Sensory podcast. So make sure you go follow us on there, and you'll get a lot of great tips there.
If this video was helpful for you, give it a like. Make sure you're subscribed. We do drop a new video every Tuesday. And just leave a comment and let us know if there's other things that you recognize that are common, and if you're curious if they're normal or not.
Yeah. All right, that's it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Feel like you're failing? Me too. I'm just kidding.
Wow, that was so motivating. So motivating.
I'm just kidding.
If you feel like you're failing, you're right, because so am I.